I'm John Rodgers from Cuyahoga Falls, and we're going to go steamboating on the lower Mississippi. We'll get into that in a minute, and we will be going first to New Orleans. But look at what we have down below. Snow on Ohio. Now, contrast that picture with the next one, which is the winding Mississippi River as we are coming down to land at New Orleans. We arrived by plane and were picked up at the airport and ate at a place called Piccadilly for lunch. And then we went over, well, first let me tell you a little bit of history. This is a painting of the celebration of the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. If you remember your Ohio history, 1803 is the year Ohio came into the Union. In the first place we went is a place called Longview. That's L-O-N-G-U-E and then V-U-E. And these are angels' trumpets. And we're in New Orleans now. This was the home of Edith and Edgar Stern. That beautiful green that you see is holly fern. And we're going to be going around the grounds for a while. Actually, we never did get really into the house, but I will have 3 views of it to show you. There's a beautiful pathway into the house with the trees on either side. Lovely lawns. The azaleas were in full bloom. This was in March of 2004. Very recent. And up to the house with the telephoto. These are columbine. Water features, all kinds of neat things on the grounds there. And this is a camellia. Camellias bloom in fall, winter, and early spring. And these are about to last for the year, for the season. And larkspur or larkspur, I think this is. And they have some nice vistas of this place. This place is well done. For you in the area that are familiar with the English Gardens over at Stan Hewitt Hall and Gardens in Akron, Ellen Shipman did the English Garden there. And Ellen Shipman is quite often, and the Sterns called her the grandmother of Longview, so she's quite often known as the godmother of Grandview, Longview. I'll get this straight. But the grounds are really sparkling, and they really are taken care of, and some of the views are just spectacular. I told you the azaleas were in full bloom, and that's a little example of them. Here's some work on the back of a bench that I thought was very outstanding. Really, really quite nice. And this is, they call it Lady Banks Rose. I, being from Charleston, South Carolina, always called it Lady Banksia Rose. That was in bloom. And this is a special little garden, the Pan Garden. And this is Pan with the pipes. Orchids. And this is a special fountain, quite nice. Those are kumquats. That is a citrus, a little citrus. The fruit is little. The plant is about the size of orange. And as you go into this place, walking in as we did from the street, you see these herons up in the oak tree as you come into the compound. Now, I mentioned that we did not actually go into the house. You can't photograph in there anyhow. But here are 3 views that I took from the brochure that I bought. This is the main hallway. And this is the library. And this is the upper hallway. Now, here's the Mississippi flowing around here, and the French Quarter is down through here. We are staying right along in here. And this is Lake Pontchartrain. You'll hear a little bit more about that. But this through here is more or less the heart of old New Orleans. Now, the French Quarter is more Spanish than it is French. But I have a few things just to give you before we go on. The Mardi Gras goes back to 1857, and Louisiana became a state in 1812. In 1840, that's not too long after that, New Orleans was the 4th largest city in the United States. Today it has a population of 497,000. And the city was established all the way back in 1718. The key to the city was sugar plantations. That was the key. In a walking tour from our hotel, we stumbled across Ben Franklin here. And an eagle, a modernized eagle. And down right on the street, part of the establishment, you might see the word glass in there, was this lighthouse, which I really like lighthouses, but this one is not a functioning lighthouse. And then some of the buildings, as we came across the park, we're heading back to the hotel, and we've just passed Ben Franklin's statue going back. And then we're on St. Charles Street. Our hotel is just up from this and off on the right, and the streetcar still runs on St. Charles Street. As a matter of fact, many of the people had used it the night before. We walked, but they had used it to go down to the place where we had a pecan catfish dinner. And frankly, it was the best meal of the whole trip. And it was at a Cajun restaurant right on St. Charles Street. Cajun is a Louisiana designation for the Acadians. They came from Canada, mainly Nova Scotia, after much persecution in the mid-1700s. And so they came down here, and the name was changed to Cajun. This is right by the hotel. The hotel is just a huge building. Now, we're going on a bus tour of New Orleans first, and after we come back from our tour on the Mississippi, I'll have just a little bit more about New Orleans at that point. But you can tell we're in Jackson Square. Now, I shot this right from the bus, and that is the statue of Andy Jackson there with St. Louis Cathedral in the background. Nice large homes, quite a few of them around there. And then one of the things that they really take you into, and it's part of the tourist attractions, would you believe, cemeteries. Cemeteries down here are all above ground. These are some of the statues on top, and these are some of the places where the bodies are put, these mausoleums and so forth, all along here. And this is cemetery number 3, and there are several others in the city, but they're all laid out like this, so everything is above ground. And they use quite a bit of statuary, and that always makes for interesting pictures. Still in that same cemetery, number 3. That's the only one that we actually went into. Beautiful sky. We had good weather that day. Mostly had good weather on the whole trip. Now, we have just come out of the cemetery, and I am shooting straight ahead. We will be turning off to the right up there, but you can see another statue right in the middle of the street as we make our way over. And here are some of the geese on the pond out in the city park, which we went to, and then they took us on over to where we would board our ship. No, they won't let me call it a ship. It's a boat because it has the word steam in front of it. So it's a steamboat. And in this postcard, this bottom ship, this bottom boat is the Delta Queen. That's the original one. No doubt you have heard of that. Then they went up a step to the Mississippi Queen, and we were on the American Queen. And American Queen is the largest of them. It's 418 feet long, 97 feet tall, and it was built in 1995. There are 222 staterooms, and listen to this, 167 in the crew. So we had quite a bit of attention. Now the tour that we're going to take, we're going from New Orleans over to Oak Alley. Oak Alley is a plantation, as you will see. Now we're still, this is all Louisiana. And then we will go up, we will pass Baton Rouge on the way up and stop at St. Francisville. We won't be able to, well, I'll tell you about it, but we won't be able to stop on the side of the river that we're supposed to. So we had an interesting little experience there. Then we'll go on up to Natchez, and this is where all the antebellum homes are, and we'll go up as far as Vicksburg, and this is the battlefield. On the way back down, then we'll stop at Baton Rouge, and then make our way back to New Orleans. Now, see this line right here, Natchez and Vicksburg on the eastern side of the river. Those are in Mississippi. All the rest are in Louisiana. And this is what some of the boat looks like. Those are what the stacks are like. You see that bridge in the background too. Flags flying on it, quite a few flags. And then we stumble across an interesting thing, but here's the pilot house. Nobody in it right now because we aren't underway, and we won't be underway for a few hours. But these people were on board. This is on one of the decks, one of the passenger decks, and they're in the process of making a movie. I don't know anything more about it than that, but some of the passengers are, from their standpoint, getting in the way, I'm sure. We have gone on now. We have sailed, and we're up at Oak Alley Plantation, Louisiana, and there you can get the first view. I'll have several views of our boat, our steamboat, but there you get the first real view of it. And we come off of it right here and use this gangplank where that person is. And then you come across and you're going up a levee, because all of this part of the Mississippi is leveed. They get enough floods as it is. It would be even worse if they did not levee. Now, we had gotten off there. We're up on the levee, and note the paddle wheel. We'll get to see that a lot closer in a little bit. But we're going into Oak Alley Plantation, and we go between 28 live oaks from the house to the Mississippi levee. We're doing it the other way around. These were planted in the 1700s, so they're a couple of hundred years old. The house itself was built in 1837 to 39, and it's in Greek Revival style as we make our way on up into it. And this all came to be from a Creole sugar plantation. Remember, Creole is sort of French, Spanish, really, down here. I thought this pussycat was kind of nice. He was one of the greeters here. And then we actually had a couple of hostesses, and this is the one that will be taking us around, because here we did go in the house, and you can photograph in the house without flash. Lots of pretty flowers around, a real nice thing. We are not scheduled to go in for a little bit, and we'll be back to the house. Looking around a bit. We're on the other side of it now. We've gone out to, yes, they have a visitor center and a gift shop. And this is another one of the hostesses there. A little bit more of the outside. This is turned around, and we're looking back up at the house. From my back is towards the visitor center. And we're coming up on the time when we will be inside, so we will make our way back there. These are beautiful yuccas. This year of 2004 has been a wonderful one for the bloom of yucca. And now our hostess has us inside in the dining room. Now, if I couldn't get a good picture myself without the flash, then I have used postcards that I bought there. But quite a few of them are mine. It's really a mixture. This one is mine. All of the bedroom scenes are mine, and that dining room one was mine. We're up on the second floor now. 4-poster bed across there. 2 in this room. Now this is one of their postcards. This is the dining room. It was just too dark for me. No, I'm sorry, this is a living room. It was just too dark for me, and the entrance hall was fairly dark also, so that's one of their postcards. And then upstairs, we were standing here, and I photographed that wonderful row of live oak trees. Now, a live oak, that doesn't mean that it never loses its foliage, but it never loses it all at once. It is always green. And some of the more or less formal gardens, this part is formal, but they don't hold to that all the time. And I hadn't seen this, this plant since I was young along the Carolina seacoast. This is banana shrub. You pick one of those things and crush it in your hand, and it smells like bananas. And it is an evergreen shrub. Now looking out across, perpendicular to our line of oaks is some of the farmland here on Oak Alley Plantation. Remember, this came into being as a sugar plantation. And we're at his office, at the plantation owner's office here. And we also went into the old garage, and I was able to get enough light to photograph these 2 vehicles in there. So that's something that a lot of people miss. They don't step over to the garage to see these things. And then looking once more with my back to the house, looking out towards our steamboat on the Mississippi River. Now on the boat, and I'll show you this in stages, this is the main stairs on the boat on the outside, And then on the upper deck, here are the pipes of the calliope. Yes, it's a steamboat, it has to have a calliope. And so the pipes are up there, and you play it from right down below, and we'll see that in a little bit. But in the meantime, we have pushed off now, and this is the levee along the mighty Mississippi River. And over, as we made our way on further, and there was more land between the river and the levee, I photographed with a long lens these horses up there getting their full of green grass. And we had left snow back at home. Here I mentioned that you would see the stern wheel of the boat. You're going to see it even more than this. But this is the propulsion for the boat. This is not a fake. This is what is actually propelling the boat. And we'll see the cylinders that do that job in a little bit. I mentioned when I showed you the map, St. Francisville, Louisiana. And I mentioned we would not be able to land in the usual place because, I didn't tell you, but the water was too high. You know, along in here, they were telling us on the boat back in, I think it went as far back as 77, the Mississippi River flooded so much that it was about 27 miles wide, just upstream from here. And we are pointing upstream. But anyhow, we could not land in the place they usually land. So there was a ferry, there's a ferry that goes across at this point. So we landed on the western side of the Mississippi River. And what they call this is choking a stump. They find trees and so forth that they can tie up with. And sometimes it is a stump, I'm sure, but that is the term when you do an unconventional tie-up. And that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to use that ferry to get over to the other side. So they got ropes running into trees and what have you, and they finally got the gangplank almost ready for us to go ashore. And in that thicket to the left, they have another line tied there to hold us in. And as I went out on the ferry, I photographed this, the back side of the boat. No, I'm sorry, the front side, the bow of the boat. Now, while we were waiting for our turn to use the ferry to go across, I went on back on the boat, and here are the stairs between two of the decks. Right on in the middle of the ship. Very, very fancy, very ornate. And here is the dining room area. Later on, this will be crowded with people, but right now it's almost empty. And this is where they held programs, and we had somebody called the Rivalorian that did lectures each morning. And they don't want you to call this salon. This is saloon. They were very emphatic. We ate a number of our meals in here. We ate lunch in here every day and breakfast in here every day. And then they had all the programs, and they had quite a bit of entertainment on this boat. That was where we did it. And this is the engine room bar. They had a couple of bars on board, and I'll be going back through here later on to get to the engine room. But stuck my head out of a window here, and here's the stern wheel from the other side. And you can see the mighty Mississippi in the background. And here's some of the flooding on the Mississippi. Now, it wasn't any 27 miles this time, but it was, boy, there was some times when it was really flooded. And then we're on the ferry now and going across, and that is a full-length view of the American Queen. Crossing over into St. Francisville, this was established in 1785, and it's part of West Florida and finally declared part of the Louisiana Purchase. I probably should have held on on the boat for a while, but we went into two houses here. One of them is this one, the Myrtles, and this is the one that is supposed to be haunted. Chloe, a house servant, and 3 children haunt the house, and you are allowed to take only the one picture, and that is this one of this mirror. And if there was a ghost present, it would be up in this little area right in here, the upper left-hand part of the mirror. But that's the only one that you're allowed to take in the house. And there weren't any ghosts in mine. And here are various views around on the grounds of the Myrtles. All kinds, you could buy things, well, of course, a gift shop, and you could buy things to eat here as well and sit down and eat them. And I'm just sort of walking around the house, taking views of the gardens. It's a nice house, and see all that wrought iron, so characteristic of New Orleans and lower Louisiana. And those are live oak boughs that you see in many of the pictures. And this is one of my favorite azaleas. This is Formosa. And if you've never seen it growing, mistletoe. Now, mistletoe likes to attach itself to oak trees. It likes to attach itself to pecans and things of that nature. But all of that dark stuff that you see growing up in these in this tree, that is mistletoe. And this is Spanish moss. Spanish moss and live oak tree sort of go together. Spanish moss is interesting, though. It's a member of the pineapple family, of all things. And here, when we got there, a number of people were sitting out here, and when I got my picture, nobody was sitting out there. And then, so I went around the other side, and finally I have a picture of 2 little statues out there, and then we will move on over, still in St. Francisville, but we will be going over to Rosedown. There's that Formosa again. Now, Rosedown was built in 1835, the Turnbulls, and this was not sugar, but cotton. He was a cotton planter. And this is sort of a walkway all the way in, and statues along the way, lots of azaleas in bloom. We came in from the side and then got into there. And you see a little house in the background, and another statue, azaleas. This is a reddish one. Then a couple of views of the house as we make our way into it. Very, very pretty place. I had to use postcards in a couple of places. This is the music. I have this listed as the music room. I don't see the instrument there. It must be behind me. And then the entrance hall and stairs. Now notice on this, and we got to see them in person. Look, this mural back in here. And there was another one on the side behind me, and very delicate looking stairs. Hopefully very strong, going up. And then this is my picture, and this is a whale oil chandelier. Of course, they don't run whale oil in it today, but I'm sure they did in the past. And this is up in one of the bedrooms, the bed itself, the full poster. Well, I guess that wasn't a full poster. That came up and had the little extension out on it. Now this is the same bedroom, the crib over in the side, and then a sitting room also. And those were all mine. And then from inside the house, I took this picture of wisteria on the outside. Remember, it's blooming down there, even though it was snow on the ground up in Ohio. And then the wisteria, and then 3 views of the gardens from inside the house. And that's the walkway where we came in. At the very far end is the road coming in, and then you go over and park, and you make your way over to the walkway to come on in that way. I like this oak tree and oak tree limb in the foreground, and looking on back into part of the garden. And then this is another of my pictures, a little dark, but not too bad, of one of the bedrooms. And here is our friend, Lady Banks Rose again. I'll use the term they use. And finally, we got back out on the Mississippi River at St. Francisville. We had crossed back over on the ferry and boarded, and then they cast off. Now, at this point, when we're out on the Mississippi, I wanted to use, I'm going to go back to that one, and I wanted to give you a quote from Mark Twain called Life on the Mississippi. Now, he might not have had that bridge across there, but there would be a man on deck of the boat with a lead line, and he would be measuring the depth of the water, and he would call up to the pilot house, and he used the term Twain and marks, and Mark Twain means 2 fathoms of water, 12 feet of water, in other words, safe water, and that's the name that Mark Twain used for writing. I'll go on, and we'll get to a little bit of it in a moment, a little more of the river. And I'll give you the full quote. Now, we have landed on up ahead there, and this to the left is the casino. And we're in Natchez, Mississippi. We have, it's not late in the day, fairly dark. We had passed Baton Rouge and gone up to Natchez. And this is the area called Under the Hills. This used to be the notorious area where anything went, and but it's a nice little cluster of shops and so forth today here in Natchez. And that is Stanton Hall. Now, we only went into one of the homes in Natchez, because a number of years ago we had gone into 8 to 10 of them, and as a matter of fact we went in Stanton Hall, and I have those pictures in another show that I do. Now, Natchez has a population of almost 20,000. A fort was established here all the way back in 1716. Stanton Hall goes back to 1857. How do you like the berries on this? This is the Burford holly. This is not native, but it grows very well down here and along the Carolina seacoast and so forth. And here's the old rail station there, and the Mississippi is just the other side of it. And then I walked from there up onto the bluff, because I had a couple of things that I knew were up there that I wanted to see. And here's the American Queen, and that bridge, which we will take later, goes over to Louisiana. And then on the bluff, on the top of the bluff above our boat is the Natchez sign, first settled by French, 1716 to 29. Lasting growth came with Britain. And then it talks about Spain and so forth. Cotton and trade made it commercial and cultural capital of the Old South. But I wasn't going for that sign. I was going for this pillar. This pillar marks the end of the Natchez Trace. It's a road that starts up in Nashville and comes down here. And if you were hauling, here's the plaque on it, if you were hauling stuff from, say, Ohio down to New Orleans, you would do it on a barge, and you would not be able to use the barge going back up. You didn't have any power. So you would come up to Natchez here as best you could, and then you would walk the Natchez Trace. Now, if you look prosperous, you better not be walking by yourself, because the Natchez Trace had thieves on it that would take your money if you were walking alone. So that's what I wanted to see. And I wanted to get to this picture, Mississippi River from the bluff, and I was going to hold it on here and give you that quote that Mark Twain wrote in Life on the Mississippi River. I had myself called with the 4 o'clock watch mornings, for one cannot see too many summer sunrises on the Mississippi. They are enchanting. First, there is the eloquence of silence, for a deep hush broods everywhere. Next, there is the haunting sense of loneliness, isolation, remoteness from the worry and bustle of the world. The dawn creeps in stealthily, and all this stretch of the river is a mirror, and you have the shadowy reflections of the leafage, and the curving shores and the receding capes pictured in it. Well, that is all beautiful, soft and rich and beautiful. And when the sun gets well up and distributes a pink flush here and a powder of gold yonder and a purple haze where it will yield the best effect, you grant that you have seen something that is worth remembering. Now, I use that in 2 of my other shows, so you might have heard it from me earlier. But I just love that passage, because when you go into Mark Twain, you can get as sarcastic as you want to, but I love that one of his description of summer sunrise on the Mississippi. I'm coming back down now, and that is the American Queen, and behind it is the casino. I don't know what the name of that casino boat is. Now, here is down under the hill, one of the other cute little shops there. Just a word about exploring the river, exploring the Mississippi. Joliet and Marquette, about 1670. And DeSoto then viewed the river near the present-day Memphis in 1541, way back there. And then LaSalle came along just after Joliet and Marquette. And he descended most of the length of the river from way up all the way down to the mouth and claimed it all for France, no matter who had it. This is one of the churches in Natchez, and I don't think it's the same one, but there is a photographic display of 500 pictures of old Natchez at the First Presbyterian Church. And we visited that on foot, but we got up into Natchez using the shuttle. And then we were on a bus, and it took us out. We were going to the Linden, but it took us out to a couple of different places, and this is Melrose Plantation. Now, we didn't go in this, but we just got this view of this magnificent place. I mentioned, and I have a note here to tell you, we had a person called the Riverlorian who gave talks every day in that saloon on board, and she was quite good, and we learned a lot about the river from her. And I don't have the right place for this, but if you remember the steamboat with all the fluted smokestack at the top, there's a little story that we got from her. When steamboats used coal and wood to fire their boilers, they had very tall fluted smokestacks to throw the burning cinders back behind them. And wealthy people had the finest rooms up there, up by these stacks, with their flutes away from animal smells, and were thus referred to as highfalutin. How do you like that for where term came from. We have come into Linden at Natchez. Mrs. Jeanette owns this house. The family purchased it in 1849, and 6 generations have lived here. Now, the man in front is a man in the neighborhood, and he is playing the part of an old general who served in the Civil War, and he is telling us about different things that happened to him during the Civil War. And as I will point out later on, we were quite often corrected to the wall between the states. As a matter of fact, down in New Orleans, our guide never did say Civil War. She was always the wall between the states. And this is our hostess. And she takes us immediately into her living room here in the house. And there should be a piano somewhere around here. Yeah, there it is over there behind her. And then I moved in close on a painting, and she's telling us all about her lovely house at this point. And this is one of the people, kin of hers, who had lived here. And then we got into a couple of the bedrooms. This is all without flash, but she did have a number of lights on for us, so it was a little easier. But there are occasions when a picture will not quite come into what I consider good focus, but you can still see everything I wanted you to see. And then a young girl came visiting here, and I thought she was cute. Neat little gal. And then outside here is the back of the house. And we got to walk all around the place, and then this is the front from a different angle. I've walked back out and stopped short of where the bus went to when we first got off. Now, instead of visiting other houses, which my wife and I had already done earlier, we went out to Frogmore Plantation, across that bridge by where the boat is, to Frogmore Plantation in Louisiana. We went here while we were stopped at Natchez. It's 19 buildings that make up the complex, but one of the main features is the cotton field. And he explained to us that he knew people didn't know much about cotton, so in the previous harvest last fall, he did not harvest all the cotton. He left a pretty good sized field for us to be able to see what cotton is. And he let you go out and pick the cotton. I got a little bit of it at home, but frankly, this is a better picture here of it while it's still on the stalks. And that lone tree in the field was intriguing to me. And we went into a little church there, and here's the preacher for this little church, and he's quite a singer as well. Here's the tiny little church, and we went inside of it, and we then occupied these. I took this picture after everybody had left so that you could see what it is like. And yes, they used outhouses at this plantation. And this is a pretty good slave house here with a fireplace like that. And there over in the corner is a sleeping area on the floor. And this lady is one of the ones who sang for us in the little church there. Great voice. She really is quite good. And I will have one more picture of her. Here's that other picture of our female singer. And then here is another lady that guided us around to the different cabins and showed us the outhouses and so forth. And then we were free to walk all around. And here are some of the cabins on this cotton plantation. And Here's another fireplace and a bed in one of them. And then while we were there, these two people were married. And you notice she has a broom. And that black minister is the one that married him. And she has a broom. And they have a little ceremony called jumping the broom. And each one of them takes turn jumping that broom. And that is supposed to put a more definite tie on the marriage. Now, if you look over his shoulder in the back, you see cotton growing. That's that cotton field that I pointed out. And I walked on up to the front of the plantation house. Now, this is not a huge plantation house, but I got to see one of my favorite flowers. This is jessamine. This is a southern vine. And I have in one of my other shows, I think on Charleston, South Carolina, I've called this an aroma for the gods. This is fantastic, jessamine. And this is the plantation house here at Frogmore. Nice, but not pretentious, and we did not go into it. Here's a log cabin on the same, on the property, still part of the same thing. And then, looking through my stuff, I found this Curry and Ives painting of cotton fields. And you see the plantation house and the slaves out in the fields picking the cotton. And I'll close this section and go back to the boat by showing you the cotton field again. Man, there's a lot of cotton on there. Now, this is the captain of our American Queen, and we hadn't really talked to him, but he gave a short talk, very humorous and full of information and so forth about what you're faced when you're working the Mississippi. And if you want to find more of it, in the olden days, before any dredging by the Corps of Engineers, go back to life on the Mississippi with Mark Twain. You had to learn the river one way, and then you turned around and started back, and lo and behold, you had to learn it that way. And then you had to learn it if there were any storms and anything going on, you had to relearn the Mississippi. Now, we're coming into Vicksburg here. There's a casino. Yeah, they're all along here. Vicksburg is in Mississippi, and we're in what is called the Yazoo Canal now. This is the old Mississippi, but the Mississippi had a habit. It doesn't do it as much anymore because of the Corps of Engineers, but it had a habit of changing its course. So it changed its course. And this is called the Yazoo Canal now. And here's a barge with wood, and this is Vicksburg off to the right. And then as we got up there, then you could see a little bit more of the town of Vicksburg. And then they had to, as we pulled in, then they had to handle the gangplank. And they will have a nice time doing that here. We're almost to our landing spot now. Yeah, here we are, and you can see the flood wall right in front of us. And here's some work on our gangway. It's not quite down yet, but it will be in a few moments. And here they're tying us up at places. They didn't have to choke a stump at this point. They had places for us to tie up. And then the flood walls. And you can see the flood markings on there. And sometimes it's really fantastic along the Mississippi River how high it really gets up. Looking across the wall into Vicksburg, and then we got down into the town itself. And we went on the inside of that wall now, and these are murals again that are painted there on the inside of the flood walls. Here's a real famous one. This is Theodore Roosevelt, and this is a painting now, a mural, and there is the bear, and there's Theodore Roosevelt, and they wanted him to shoot the bear, and he, of course, would not do it. And this is the origin of the name teddy bear. Started all with a scene something like this. This probably is not quite accurate, but could be, could be. And then further on, a painting of the downtown, a mural of the downtown. And this is in the place where they first bottled Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola was first bottled here in Vicksburg, Mississippi. And then we kept on walking around, and we had just talked to a young mother with a couple of kids, and we're up to the main street now, and that's one of the old Confederate cannons. And walking on uptown, this is where the first Coca-Cola was bottled, right in the candy company here. And then we walked on down, and then we swung around and walked the other way. And I don't have a close-up picture, but this red building in the background here, that actually has cannon shot damage on the back of it, even to this day, from the bombardment of Vicksburg by the Union forces. And as we're making our way back to the boat again, I like lions, so I take lion pictures quite a bit. And then on a bus, then we that afternoon, then we made our way out to the Vicksburg National Military Park. The Battle of Vicksburg and the taking of Vicksburg, even for Abraham Lincoln, was considered the key to the whole Southern campaign. There were battles fought here, and then the Union was not successful in getting the Confederates to surrender or to leave, and so they set siege to Vicksburg. Now we'll go on in, and this is an Ohio memorial here. Ohio chose to use smaller memorials and more of them. You'll see some of the other states didn't do it that way. We're going on Union lines now. Here's some of the earthworks thrown up and cannons along there. In general, if you can see a blue sign, that is Union lines. If you see a red sign, that is Confederate lines. And we'll be coming back out on the Confederate lines. But here's what I was talking about. Some of them went for big stuff. This is the Illinois Memorial. Pretty sky there. We did have good weather, especially that day to go in there. And here's a close-up of that top, the Illinois Memorial. And very close to it, off to the right, is the Shirley House. And the Shirley House probably looks a little bit more elaborate and fine today than it did then, but it stood for the battle. And then here is the Wisconsin Memorial. That's the whole thing, and Wisconsin had a strange mascot. Here's one of the scenes there, and there on the top of it is a golden eagle. That was their mascot. And further on, as we're making our way around, is another Ohio memorial. And then you'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I started too soon. This is a soldier with just marching along, and I was just about to tell you that was Ulysses S. Grant on a horse. But here is another memorial, and here is the Ulysses S. Grant on horseback. I don't know whether that last one was an Ohio memorial or not. I tend to think it was. And then after this one, we have a soldier with a flag and a new, and now this will be slightly fuzzy, but I wanted to leave it in anyhow. This is a new African American statue here in Vicksburg. Going on further, this was Thayer's Approach. Now, Thayer's Approach, they used a tunnel here, but when we say an approach like that, what the Union forces were trying to do is dig tunnels under the Confederate lines, which they would then blow up. It didn't really work all that great. This battle was in May of 1863, the battle and then the siege, and this is some more of Thayer's Approach. And then this obelisk, a big one, is a Navy obelisk. Now I'm going to move in on the base of it and show you one of those statues there. This is David Dixon Porter. And then another one of the Ohio memorials. Now we're going down to a strange ship. And as we make our way, we're almost down there. This is the Union Graveyard there at Vicksburg. And we're right by the Cairo. The Cairo is a ship that was sunk in the Mississippi before the river changed its course, and it was recovered then from the Yazoo. The Cairo sunk on December the 12th, 1862, and they got it back up, and it was really interesting. And inside, you can see some of the artifacts that they found with it. This is just a little fuzzy; it won't come quite in. And here's a cannon on the Cairo, and then the Cairo itself. And they have to really watch it, but you are allowed to walk all through it. It's really quite neat. Vicksburg was given up by the Confederacy on July the 4th, 1863. That is within a day of the conclusion of the Battle of Gettysburg. And here over to the side again, within sight of the Cairo, is the Union Cemetery. And this is where the Mississippi once ran, but the Mississippi is on to the west of that now. And here is a Tennessee memorial. Now we're going out and back to that entrance sign by way of the Confederate lines. And here is Mississippi Light Artillery. See, that's a red sign now, and that's Confederacy. And then this is the place where you can look back at that tunnel. See, if the Union forces could use a tunnel to get back and forth, then they would not be subjected to the Confederate fire as they moved around. This is the other side of that Thayer's Approach. And here's a Missouri monument. And then a couple of the Confederate lines. These earthworks were really something. Imagine having to try and run across those things as you made your way out. And then this is the entrance arch. That's the one I didn't show it to you, but we went through that to get to both the Union and the Confederate lines and to the Cairo. And then back in the courthouse at Vicksburg. And that will be the last picture of Vicksburg, and we'll see a little more flooding of the Mississippi. Now, these people get carried away, but I had to leave dinner and came back to it. But I had to leave dinner to get a decent sunset picture. This was the best sunset of the whole trip, and they had just served us dinner with no space for taking pictures of this nature. So sunset on the Mississippi. Mark Twain talked about sunrise. I'm a late sleeper, so I'd rather talk about sunset on the Mississippi. And this man did a lot of the entertaining. This is Phil Westbrook, piano and singing. He did Irish nights, he did all kinds of songs. And then in the saloon, he actually did a show of his own. But this one is being done by Fred Bishop. He's a participant in other shows, but he did one of his own as well. One of the decks as we are making our way along. Now we have turned, we're heading